There was a girl living in one of the city blocks. The whole neighborhood knew her. And this girl was notable for being always sad and unhappy. None of the neighbors have ever seen her with a smile on her face. In response to all the greetings, the girl only nodded sadly and sank even more into her sadness. Whatever was going on around her, she always found reason to be sad. As soon as she woke up in the morning and looked out the window, she immediately fell into sadness. And it didn't matter what the girl saw outside the window. Sun, rain. On rainy days, cold days, she grieved and wept. Here we go, it's wet and cold again. Today a car will definitely puddle me. What's to be happy about? When the sun was shining in the sky, the girl sighed heavily. It's sunny again. The whole town will be in dry dust again, and I won't be able to breathe normally. And why is everyone happy? So she lived like this for a long time, starting and ending every day with sadness. One afternoon, a girl sat in the park and started crying about her misfortunes. Her old neighbor was passing by. She approached the bench where the girl was sitting and asked, "Would you mind if I sit next to you? Today is so sunny and only this bench is in the shade." In response, the girl just shrugged her shoulders and looked at the woman and offered to sit down. The old lady sat down, looked at the girl for a while and asked, "Why are you always so sad, dear?" The girl said, "What's to be happy about? Look around. There are no happy days in this town. On rainy days, there are puddles and mud all around." The old lady objected, "But it's sunny today." To what the girl just grinned, "Yes, and that means by noon, it'll have dried the city so much that it'll be hard to breathe." The old lady smiled and said, "It's not right. That means it'll dry out all the puddles that make you so sad." After saying this, the woman went down the alley, and the girl suddenly looked around and smiled for the first time. She noticed that the puddles were really dry. You shouldn't poison your life with sadness about the things we can't change. Enjoy the little things. Then the great happiness won't keep you waiting.
Ellie had just started a new job and she was very busy. But still, she loved to spend time with her nephew Mike. Once they were playing in the park and Ellie asked what he would like for his birthday. He replied that he would like to go to Disneyland with her. Ellie smiled and promised that his wish would come true. Mike ran home happy, and the first thing he did was brag to his mom that he was going to Disneyland for his birthday. Amanda, Ellie's sister, took her aside and looked at her sternly. "Do you know how upset he'll be if you don't keep your promise because of your new job?" Ellie assured that she knows her schedule for several months ahead and there's nothing urgent, so she will keep her word. The birthday was approaching and Ellie was loaded with work. She almost lived in the office and, of course, totally forgot about Mike's birthday. At the last moment, the calendar on her phone reminded her of what day it was. Ellie rushed out of the office, drove into a toy store, bought the largest railroad, and drove to her sister's. She went into the apartment and only then remembered the promise. Mike ran to meet her. He was already dressed and was pulling a children's travel case with him. Amanda followed him. She looked at her sister and realized that Ellie had forgotten about Disneyland. Ellie handed the boy a present, congratulated him on his birthday, and hugged him tightly. Mike asked if they would miss the train to Disneyland. Ellie became terribly ashamed. She began to explain that it's the thing with adults sometimes that their evil boss doesn't want to let them go to Disneyland. "How come?" Mike sniffed. "I promised my teddy bear that we would go to Disneyland. What should I tell him? He'll be upset. I'll become bad for him because promises must be kept." Mike turned around and went to his room. Amanda said nothing to her sister and went to console her son. Ellie returned to the office. She worked all night and then went to her boss and told him that she needed a few days off. He listened to her and agreed. Ellie bought 3 train tickets and came to visit her sister. She told Mike everything and he jumped with happiness. On the train, Ellie apologized to Amanda, who smiled and answered, "We have forgiven you. Just learn to promise what you can do, or it's better not to promise at all, especially when it comes to little children. No need to promise. Do good now. Share this video with those you love."
Brian's dad got promoted, and the whole family moved to a new city. Brian missed his friends very much, but he had a new friend, Harry. Harry was different from Brian's friends. He knew almost everything in the world and spoke well. Brian also taught Harry pranks and amused his friend. From the beginning of the school year, Brian went to the same school as Harry and got to know his company. Brian didn't like them. Brian came home one day sad and locked himself in his room. His dad came to talk to him. "I don't want to live here," Brian said. "I want to go back to the old school, to my friends. I don't like this school, Harry, and his friends." Dad got scared and asked who offended his son. Brian replied that no one offended him, but he's not interested in them. He's like an extra kid in their company. They all know a lot. They speak in a way that he doesn't understand half of their conversations and their jokes. And when Brian jokes, they don't laugh. Dad smiled. He told his son that in his youth, he did track and field and participated in running competitions. "And I noticed that when I trained with my friends who ran worse than me, my results were average. But when I ran in competitions with strong opponents, I set personal records." Dad also added that it's the same in life. This is Brian's chance to level up and achieve something new. He has someone to catch up with. Brian thought about it for a moment. He remembered that at school, Harry's company had been discussing a book. He found it on the internet and tried to read it. He woke up in the middle of the night and realized that the book fascinated him so much that he did not stop until he had read it to the end. Brian liked the author and the next day he bought all of his novels. He read books and began to understand what Harry's friends were talking about. So once, when the conversation turned to the book, Brian said that this author has a more interesting novel. And everyone, including Harry, listened to Brian intently. Happy Brian returned home and went to his father. "Dad, you were right. Friendship with those who are better than us sometimes seems difficult, but it makes us grow above ourselves." Dad laughed and replied that now he also sees that his son has become much smarter.